Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. I am so excited it's Friday. I also need more lip gloss, y'all. Hold on. Let me get this taken care of here. You guys know that I'm like a lip gloss freak, and I know y'all are going to ask me. This is the one I'm using. It's NYX. It's called Lip Butter. No, Lip Cream. It's amazing. Prague. Love it. Okay, now that I'm done giving you all a commercial, I'm going to talk to you about launching. How about that? All right, so basically I wanted to do this live stream because do you guys ever have that experience where when something happens for one client, you notice it for everybody, or like kind of that whole idea of like anything personal is universal. And like usually when we see something happening in one client or with one of us or whatever, that there's always a way where we see it show up so many other places. And that's kind of what I've been seeing around launching lately. I've had a bunch of my clients launch to really amazing results in general, but recently that's been a big thing on deck for me. And there's just been one thing that keeps coming up over and over again for everybody that's doing super well and like killing this game. And so that's what I want to talk to you all about today. If you're here, say hi. I would love to chat with you. Hi, Kate. Oh, I love that you're here. You're going to have so much to contribute to this. Okay, so if you watched, sorry, it's Friday afternoon, y'all. You're going to have to forgive me. I'm probably going to misspeak about 70 times. If you commented on my post where I said I was going to do this, I was like, I'm going to give you some pre-work. And so the pre-work, I said, hey, Leanne, the pre-work I said was write down the top 5 things that you think are going to give you the best launch or the most successful launch, right? So if you did that, or if you didn't and you're just thinking about it, I would love for you to drop them in the comments. Like, what do you think is going to give you the most successful launch? You don't have to do all 5, just give me one. But what do you think is the thing that is going to give you the most successful launch? I would love to know what you think, Kate, because you're totally an expert at this. Hey, everyone, if you're here, say hi, even if you don't want to drop what you think is the number 1 launch secret. That's okay. Just say hi. And then I shall reveal it. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not kidding. I'm going to reveal it, but don't mean to build that much suspense. I just want to hear what y'all have to say first. And I also would like to drink tea out of my I'm fucking magical unicorn mug because I can't get enough of this thing. And I think it makes everything taste better. Okay. Is anybody going to tell me what they think? Or am I going to have to guess? Hi, everyone. Okay. Maybe you're not telling me, or maybe it's not showing up, but either way, I will start talking so we don't have to sit here indefinitely. Okay, but it's sort of like this mix of things, I think, and it's like one thing, but it's a mix. And what I mean by that is like, I think everybody probably expects me to say mindset or strategy or execution, because those are the things I talk about. And kind of, yes, all of the above. It's sort of a mix of those things, but it's the idea of picking the thing that you think will work, whatever strategy works best for you or you love the most or you think will work the best. Oh, Kate says, pre-validation, holistic plan strategy, feedback loops for body and strength launch, positive mindset expectations. You go, girl. I love that. Yes, and right? You're like, it's not one thing, it's all of these things. But I think you're right. And what I think the one thing is this idea that you have to go with a strategy and you have to see it through till the end, and you have to stay in it, both mindset wise, both in execution and in strategy. What I see so many people doing wrong in launches that make them not work is they're not staying in it. They're tapping out at the end. They're changing their strategy. They're deciding that it's not working and they're pulling out, or they're throwing spaghetti at the wall and adding 5 more things to their launch plan. And they're not getting good results. And they're going, see, I knew it wasn't working. The clients that are getting the amazing results are picking a strategy and a plan. They're sticking to it the whole time, even when it doesn't seem like it's working. They're staying in belief, right? And they're seeing it through until the very, very last moment. Oh, yeah. Launch, what did you say? A great sales page and a launch strategy for sure. Hey, Linz. Yes, Kate, making little tweaks but big pivots will kill it for sure. Lindsay says, yes, strategy, but not energetically in it. Both, right? I think that's the key is like when we change the strategy is because our belief is shifting around it, right? So like you can play games with yourself all day and be like, well, I'm just adding this strategy because so-and-so told. No. You're adding it because you don't believe it's working and because you don't believe it will work, right? So you're like tapping out of it before it's even done. And so I think that is the biggest thing. Like the clients that have had major success lately have just stayed in it. Like Lindsay said, both in their mindset or in their energy and definitely in their strategy. So not changing stuff, not throwing things at the wall, because here's the truth. The last launch I did for value-centered sales, 50% of my sales happened on the last day. One of my very good friends had a huge launch recently. And I'm telling you this because this number is staggering. 65% of her like total sales happened in the last 8 hours, you guys, the last 8 hours. So she could have spent a ton of the 2-week cart open period she had thinking it wasn't working and how shitty it was and how she wasn't performing and how this was happening and that was happening and she was never going to meet her number. I mean, the fact that it was 65% in the last 8 hours tells you everything. But she stuck in it. She stayed in it, both in her mind and in what she was doing, right? Liz says, oh my gosh, yes, I was just thinking about this the other day. That's awesome. Kate says, that's why it's important to be intentional with the plan you choose and do that well ahead of time. Hands down, right? Like you have to know what you're deciding. That's why I was like, make a list of the top 5 things that you think are going to get you a successful launch, because you should look at those and you should create a strategy and then you should get bought into that, right? So it's not like what Lacey thinks I should do or whatever. It's like, what do you think you should do? Because that's what you're going to be the most bought into and that's what you're going to be the most likely to stick to, right? Hey, Maria. Bridget, you just opened your cart last night. Congratulations. Do you have a strategy? If not, you should talk to Kate Boyd, but otherwise you should see it through. I just almost flew back into my wall there, y'all. Kate says, yep, that's why you can build other urgency triggers within to keep them more consistent, but no matter what, it's always the end of early bird or the cart close that makes the most difference, right? And most people are stopping, changing, tapping out, whatever you want to call it, both mentally and in their actions before that happens. And they're reinforcing this belief that they have that it's not working or their strategy wasn't right or they didn't do the right thing or whatever. Like, I don't even want to have a conversation around if you had a bad launch, why you had a bad launch, like as far as like your offer or your sales page or whatever, unless you saw it through till the end. Because if not, we have no data, right? Like there's nothing there. You didn't see it through. You didn't see through the strategy, right? And I think the other thing is like kind of going back to this idea of my clients having a lot of success lately. All of them have used different strategies, you guys. Like I had one that did primarily like personal invites and relationship building. I had another one that was more like content and live content based. And I had another one that did it almost entirely via her email list. So it's not like there's this magic secret, right? You can launch in a lot of different ways. The question is, which one feels good enough to you that you're going to stick to it? So even when you're having that bad day where nobody bought or where you talked about it and nobody even clicked on the page, like which one of those feels the best to you so that you're actually going to stick to it and see it through, versus like if you're trying to do someone else's strategy that doesn't feel good to you, but you're like, oh, whatever, I'll just force myself through it for 2 weeks. You won't, because when you have that bad day, you're going to try to tap out of it and you're going to go, I'm going to go do this other thing, or I need to add this, or I need to make this big pivot, or I need to change my messaging. And you're going to get crazy, right? And on top of that, what happens when you get crazy is that you start showing that with your actions. So like, yes, it's very powerful when you make a statement like, I don't think this is working. Of course, that is a creative statement and you're bringing that to you. It's even more powerful when you then take action that supports that belief. Like, it is not working, and now I'm going to take action that says it's not working, right? Data matters. Yes, it does. Hey, Mira. Okay, personalize for yourself and your audience is the secret. So you're excited about it. Exactly. Like you have to feel good about it because you're going to have shitty days. Yes, Lindsay just said, and you're going to get crazy. Exactly. Oh, Julie, I love you. You're so supportive. Thank you. You can't even hear me, but heart. But yes, like Lindsay said, you're going to have bad days. There are going to be days where people don't buy. You are going to have days where you're like, oh my God, this is so exhausting. But like what you are going to do if you want to win is you're going to keep going on that same strategy anyway and let it go until the very, very, very end. Because if you don't, you just ruined your data, right? Like Kate said, data matters. But like, we don't really know if it worked or not because you changed too late or you stopped doing it or you didn't show up. Like, that's the thing, y'all. You got to be in it with your mind, but your actions totally reinforce that too. So you have to be in it with your actions. You have to see it through. I had a client recently who had put out like a few different offers. She was selling a high-end program and put out a few different offers to chat with her about this program that she was doing. And not a lot of people took her up on it initially. And then all of a sudden on the last day, like her entire schedule booked out. She couldn't even fit more people or more calls in. And she was like, I mean, WTF, I'd been offering this for like a week. What happened? And it was this idea that like, had she just been like, fuck it, nobody's taking me up on these, I'm not going to offer it, she wouldn't have stayed in it and gotten all of those sales at the end and all of those calls, right? And that's what we do so often is we go, okay, well, I've put it out there twice, so forget it. It's not working. If people wanted it, they would have taken it. How many times have y'all said that? Drop an emoji. I've totally said that. Drop an emoji if you've said, well, if they wanted it, they would have taken it the first or second time I offered it, right? And it's such a disservice to ourselves and to our audience because we don't stay in it. And then what do? We go, I don't know how to launch. I tried everything that everybody told me to try. I mean, shit, I added in this at the end and I took this pivot and I changed my messaging and I did this and it just doesn't work. And really what doesn't work is the fact that you didn't let it work, right? Because whatever, like you didn't believe it was going to work. You said everybody's dropping emojis, right? Like it's such a common thing. I've totally said that myself. My amazing and loving OBM, Megan Shupri, once had to remind me in beautifully forceful text message that 2 emails don't equal a launch, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like she was like, so that's actually not called a launch. What's called a launch is you asking over and over again. And it's so true. So it's not only asking over and over again, but it's like sticking to this strategy because it both reinforces your belief that it's going to work and it actually gives it a chance to work. Like, I actually commented on someone's post recently and said something, what did they say? They asked something about why something wasn't working, right? And I said, how long have you been sticking to your strategy? And I think they said, I don't know, I'm like changing it up weekly based on what was working. And I'm like, no, you need to stick to a strategy for like at least 90 days. And they were shocked. They were like, that's insane, 90 days, like not in a bad way, but just like, surprised. Like they weren't like, mad. They were just like, that's shocking to me because this industry can make it seem like things should work so fast. And if they don't, you have to make these huge changes, right? But like we're in this place where we're not giving anything a chance to actually work, right? Truth. Kate, you're right. 2 emails is not a launch. Thank you. Claire, I'm going to tell you the biggest secret of my life about this camera quality. It's called a Diva light ring. See this baby right here? She's my best friend. I use her for everything. And it was maybe the best money I've ever spent in my business, at least top 3. So tip on the camera quality. Okay. Julie says, I can listen now. This is interesting. Thinking about how to apply this to my practice of law. My offers are my service, but I'm restricted in how I do things. Yeah, that totally makes sense, Julie. I think it's more like the idea of being applicable in the sense of sticking to something, sticking to that strategy and seeing it through, right? I'm so glad I'm watching this before I launch. Lindsay, yes, you're good at this though, right? Because you know that your energy around it matters. So like when you're not believing it's going to work or tapping out of it or whatever, whether it's like in strategy and action or energetically, it stops working really fast, right? And then because a launch window is so short, you don't usually have the time to like re-engage that momentum, right? Like, so the middle of a launch is the worst. Like Kate was saying earlier, like early bird end or like cart close end. I mean, I find the most sales are usually at like the final cart close, but regardless, there's like this period, say between early bird and cart close of like a week where people freak out. I mean, self included, like I'm not immune to this. I still freak out. I just try to make myself stay in it. All my clients that have done awesome still freaked out. They just had to make themselves stay in it, right? So what happens is in that period, if you, whatever, pivot, throw this huge new strategy, start throwing shit at the wall like spaghetti and seeing what sticks, you don't have the time to rebuild that momentum. So even if the next thing you picked would have worked, let's say, the next strategy, you don't even have the time to rebuild it. So that's like the huge piece here too. It's not only sticking in it with like belief and with your action, it's sticking in it because that's your chance for it to work, right? Like you have to execute on that strategy fully. And if you employ a new one, you're not giving it enough time to work. You have such a short window of a couple weeks there. So that is the most important thing that you can possibly do. My takeaway is not to see things through for a while in general. Yes, definitely. Or to see things through for a while in general. Absolutely, hands down. Kate said, I had to get with a mastermind sister of mine and help her get into emailing more. She did 2 little mentions in a roundup. And I was like, no, we need more. Yeah, exactly. And like when you're in it, you're like, but I told them. And if they really wanted it, they would have bought, right? And then when you're looking at it from the outside, you're like, they probably didn't even see your 2 little mentions and people need like 8 touch points and, right? Lindsay, I sit my butt down outside and get back in. Haha, totally, for sure. I love ring lights, best photo equipment ever. Really. Biggest launch secret, Diva light. Exactly. The secret to your launch is actually to get this light ring because you'll feel pretty and great the whole time. Mostly I just wish I could find a way to carry it around with me everywhere I go. So I actually look like this all the time. Okay, so we're talking about staying in it, both in your mindset, even when it gets tough, and in your action and in your strategy. And then I would say like really not tricking yourself that something else is going to work better. Like it's so easy to talk yourself into things, especially when you're like in fear, right? That it's not working. Like so easy to go, well, I mean, I know I was going to stick to this strategy, but I watched this webinar yesterday and they said if I just do X, Y, and Z, that I'll get a good launch or I'll have 100 people sign up or whatever the thing is, right? And it's so easy to convince yourself that that's the thing. But honestly, the thing is consistency. The thing is seeing it through. And the thing is actually giving it a chance to let it work and not breaking up your momentum in between, right? So all of the clients that had these big results is because they came up with a plan first. In fact, Kate helped one of them come up with a plan, which was amazing, right? But they came up with a plan first. They saw that plan through. They might have made a little tweak here or there, slightly deviated if life happened or whatever, but like they saw that plan through. They decided it was going to work. And even when it looked like it might not be working, they stayed in it. And I think that's the mindset piece here too. And that is faith, right? Like faith isn't feeling really good and convinced that it's going to work because people are buying. Faith is believing they will, even when it appears that they're not, right? Hey, Safia. Kate says, that's kind of why my packages help, because when the content is written a week or two in advance, they just go with it because it's done. That makes total sense, right? Like you kind of have to stay in it because it's already done, right? Yes, that totally makes sense. I love that. So tip 2, do your stuff in advance so that you have to stay in it. But really that's so true. Like, almost like give yourself a no option for changing the strategy kind of thing, right? And again, like keeping the faith, like faith is such an important piece in launching because like I said, it is a short time window, but it feels very long. Like it's not weird to go for a couple of days in a launch where nobody buys, right? Except nobody actually tells you that. They're like, my cart just fills up all the time. not true. It's not unheard of to go a couple of days where no one buys. So like in those couple of days, you have to practice that faith muscle that even though it looks like people might not be buying, they actually are going to. And if you don't, what's going to happen is like, you're going to be like my friend, except she stayed in it, right? But like I'm saying, you could have missed out on 65% of the sales. Like imagine that. So say you lost the faith and you gave up on the last day or the last 2 days. Like imagine losing 65% of your profits in a launch. Even like me, 50% on the last day. Imagine losing 50% of the profits in your launch. Like that takes you from a 5K launch to a 5-figure launch, right? Lindsay, hashtag trust the universe, always grow. Yes, they decided it's going to work, Safia. It's really as simple as that. And then our actions dictate that, right? Kate says that's why it's also important to have a good relationship with your audience is strong anyway, because then the launch window almost doesn't matter because they're going to buy for you too. Totally. Yeah. Like Lindsay, though, you're right. Like, I mean, maybe it's not 2 weeks of no sleep, but I mean, during the launch, you're just kind of hustling, right? Inherently. So, you know, even if you're not sleeping as well, not taking care of yourself as well, like it makes it harder to stay insulated from those things where like, if somebody doesn't buy for a couple of days, you lose your mind, right? So it's so important that you have like absolutely committed to seeing it through, because if not, like when you're not getting as much sleep, when you're not taking as good of care of yourself in that time frame, potentially, you don't want to make the wrong decision and decide to scrap everything, right? Sasha says it's tough when so much energy goes into creating a product and then the launch sucks up everything left. Totally. I think that makes sense. You know, in the sense that like a launch does take so much of your energy. And I think that's why having that plan and being able to see it through makes such a difference, because you don't want to be putting that energy. Like I find that most people waste and expend the most energy when they're switching up the plan or trying to figure out the new thing or throwing stuff together at the last minute, right? Because it takes them in this whole icky direction and it feels so heavy and so draining versus like, I have this plan. I believe it's going to work. I'm sticking to it, right? So you have to give yourself that option. I mean, I totally get sometimes when we launch, it's just a lot of work anyway, especially if we don't have a team to help us with that. But either way, I think, you know, having that plan in advance takes away so much of the decision fatigue and energy spend surrounding it, right? Okay, so I am going to take a sip of my unicorn tea, and then I would love to know, what are y'all's questions around this? Do you feel like this is hard for you? Do you feel like this is easy? Do you feel like you have questions around this, thoughts around this? Have you been there? Have you done that? Give me your comments and let me know what you think while I drink my tea. Also, if you need help with launching, Kate will make you an amazing launch plan. Hey, Kate. I think the other thing I'll say too, is not that a launch plan isn't amazing, because it is, and you should make one, but like we also get so complicated with that. Like your launch plan can't just be send 2 emails, but it doesn't have to be send 17 emails, segment your audience, do 17 live streams, show up every day, post 7 times a day. Like, right? Like I was telling you, I had a client kill her launch and it was almost all behind the scenes with personal invitations, relationship building, etc. So like, it doesn't have to be this super complicated strategy or this super complicated plan. It just has to be something that feels like it's going to work and that you're willing to stick to. Lindsay, I called it unicorn tea because it's in my I'm fucking magical unicorn mug. And I think it tastes better in here. So then I call it unicorn tea because I'm 5 years old, obviously. Kate, I'm the weirdo that actually feels more at peace during the launch. I think that makes sense sometimes too, right, though? Because sometimes the anticipation is almost worse than being actually in it. Kind of how Sasha said earlier, like you put so much into a product. And so sometimes like the anticipation of selling it is probably almost worse. But if you have a plan, you have a plan, right? Yes, makes you more vulnerable to switch up when energy is all over the place. Exactly. It's so much harder to make good decisions around that. Angelica says, I'm looking into more organic marketing since Facebook ads are going bonkers this week, right? I mean, I think I think that's the thing too, is sometimes we have to make a switch up, right? So like if something's happening with your ads or your account's having an issue or Facebook ads are going bonkers, whatever, then, sometimes we have to switch it up slightly. But I think what's so important to remember is that if we have a plan, we can kind of translate it versus like doing it because we feel like we have to, or making all these switches in the middle because we want to, or changing from paid marketing to organic or vice versa in the middle of it. Like you're just not going to give yourself enough time, right? Yeah, and I so needed to listen to this, but had to pause. So I'll have to go back and listen again later. Good. I'll keep it up for sure. Safia says, I was super in my last mini launch, and while it didn't convert quite as well as I would have liked, I think it's super, super important to be open to the indirect benefits of your efforts. Example, the community you build, for sure. And I think there's also so much that goes into like pre-launch, right? Like, have you already built your audience? Have you already built your community? If you don't, you might be launching to build your community. And there's so much that comes from that. So like, I always have this thing that I try to think of no matter what I'm doing. I think, Kate, we talked about this for the low cost offer thing, like win before you've already won. So it's not necessarily the secret here, but it's like the thing that makes it all way more fun. Like if I know my launch is still building my list or going to get me one-on-one clients or going to build my community or whatever, like there's a way where I can win before I've already won, and it makes it easier to stay in it and be in the mindset of that, right? It can be as simple or as complicated as you want it to be, for sure. Liz, makes a lot of sense to me. I used to switch up my plans all the time and nothing worked. Now I stay the course and it's working. Yeah, I love that. So true. I'm a cute 5-year-old. Good. It's my deep layering. Yeah, I'm not good at anticipation either. Jennifer, I'm so glad to hear that it doesn't have to be big to work. Thinking of a big launch kind of makes me want to throw up. Jennifer, I hear you. I'm not I like to help people with big launches. I'm not personally the biggest fan of big launches in my business. It's just not my jam. If there is not a close date to your product, then how do you know when to end the launch? I think you would just do it differently, Claire. Like it's not really a launch then. Or if you want to do a launch for a whatever DIY product, or you would want to add like a bonus that goes away. So you'd still want like a launch period where that bonus left. Safia says organic Trump Facebook ads for me, for sure. I think that's so true. I mean, I think ads are great, especially they're great if you have a warm audience you're running them to. I think cold ads for a launch, I mean, there's strategy, right? But it's definitely, you want to build on your organic audience for sure. Kate says, exactly, you make more intentional choices and that makes a big difference for sure. I have a question. A friend of mine is launching her workshop now. Her only strategy is to share the link with her affiliates. That's what she's doing so far. Her affiliates didn't make one single sale. Does she need to stick with that strategy or question mark? Thanks for your advice. So I guess I would say like it probably depends on how far along she is in it. But if that's what she planned and that's sort of how she built it, I would say like go all in on that, right? So like if her affiliates aren't showing up for her, can she reach out to them? How can she get them to show up? How can she lean more into that instead of being like, okay, screw the affiliates, I'm going to go this other way, right? So there's always a way to like deepen into what we're doing and still stay in it, right? So like, for example, say I decide like I'm going to launch primarily through Facebook live streams. I'm going to do one every day or I'm going to do one in my group at least a couple times a week. Well, maybe in the middle of that launch, I realized, oh my gosh, every time I do a live stream, I'm getting a sale. And I really am liking doing those live streams. So like I can deepen into that and I can go further into that, but I'm not like totally changing the strategy. I'm not like, okay, now I'm actually going to go do affiliates instead of this live stream thing, right? And so I would say there, like your opportunity is like, well, I've already planned it out this way and I've already put the effort in. How can I deepen into that and make that continue to work versus like, how do I completely change it up in the middle, right? Claire, that makes sense. Good. Anybody else have any questions on this? Any thoughts around this? That's the big secret, y'all. You got to stay in it with your mindset and you got to stay in it with your strategy. I mean, I think, you know what? I'm going to add something else here too, is like sometimes we stay in it almost till the end and then we miss the point where we really, really sell. I see a lot of people do that too. So like they'll stay in it all the way through whatever, like their challenge, their live stream series, their email sequence, whatever. And then the part where they really go all in on selling it, that's when they sort of back off a little bit. So I would say that's a piece too. Like when I say stay in it, I mean all the way to the very end, to the moment the cart closes, maybe even after, right? Like to the moment the cart closes all the way through till the next morning, till the next day, till your upsell or downsell. Like really, really stay present, stay in it, execute your strategy fully, because you will be amazed at what happens when all of those things come together and you actually give it the chance to work. Barb, yep, that was me before I worked with you. Oh, good. Yeah, exactly. Lindsay, I'm so glad you just said that. I didn't really articulate that how I was trying to, but that's exactly what I was trying to make the point of, is like, sometimes if you stay in it all the way until the next morning or whatever, like you can make sales even after your cart has closed. Like there is this way where as soon as we decide that's it, or the opportunity has ended, or the thing isn't working or whatever, we just shut it off. When we keep staying open, there's this way where it keeps coming, right? Okay, and making sure those elements you use don't back away from selling. Exactly, right? Emails, live streams, etc. Like, are you actually going all in on that, right? Just catching the end. I'll have to go back to the replay. This sounds like good stuff. Yes, Haley, I think you'll like it. Barb, you sold after too. See, great point. Like there's this way where we decide so quickly that it's over, it's not working, or it's done, or whatever. And there's so many opportunities, especially because a launch builds so much momentum for you. Like I know for me, I've never launched and not also gotten one-on-one clients. So that's another thing too. Like there's so many other benefits of this. I think Safia said building community, building your list, right? We talked about that a little bit. And then also like all the other opportunities that can come through it because you believe it's working and you're executing the strategy. And said strategy is creating momentum because you're actually executing on it consistently. See how that works, right? So Barb was super in her launch. She was so visible. Loved watching her. Yeah, she was. Angelica, how long of a launch do you recommend? I like 2 weeks. But it kind of depends on the size. I have a client who we're doing shorter than that because her offer is smaller. But personally, I usually roll with 2 weeks. Okay. Anybody else have questions? This is so fun. I love this conversation, you guys. And I love that you're all like, yes, I see how this works for this, or I remember how it worked for me, or I can see the connection here, right? How long or how do you launch and keep the momentum going? How do you launch and keep the momentum going? Mira, I don't necessarily understand your question. I think maybe you mean after, or do you mean during? Can you tell me a little bit more? Yeah, Kate, like 5 to 14 days. Exactly. So yeah, like you could do a little bit shorter if you have a smaller product. It kind of depends, especially on timing too. My personal preference is just 14 days because I like space, but doesn't mean it's the right thing for you always, right? Hi, Kate. Okay, Mira, I'm going to assume that you mean keep the momentum going after the launch, but if you don't mean that, feel free to correct me and I'll answer it differently. But how do you launch and keep the momentum going? Yeah, okay, so I'm gonna just roll with that and then correct me. So basically, I think during the launch, you create so much momentum in the sense that Kate, you like shorter. That's funny. It's like such a matter of preference, right? It's like so funny how that works. Like I'm like, oh, I need the space. And you're like, oh, I'd much rather it be shorter. I love that. Okay, so yes, after. Okay, perfect. So when you launch, you create all this momentum, right? Like say you built your community. Maybe you did a challenge. Maybe you did something to build your list. Maybe you did a live stream trading. It doesn't matter. But you've created this buzz, right? And some of those people are going to buy and some of them aren't, but you still are in their minds. You're in front of more people. You're in front of them. So you can capitalize on that in a lot of different ways. Like, so maybe you want to make an upsell after that. Maybe you did a small program, but somebody was really waiting for you to talk about one-on-one. Maybe you want to do a downsell and sell like a DIY thing that you have because they didn't take you up on the one-on-one thing or the big course. Like, you can keep the momentum of having buzz and people around you and see if they want something else from you, or just continue to talk about your stuff, right? But what you don't want to do is fall off the face of the earth. So that's what can happen if you get super burnt out in a launch. You've created all this buzz, all this momentum, and then afterwards you just totally fall off the face of the earth, right? And it like stops it. So it's like your ball is rolling downhill, rolling downhill, rolling downhill, and then it stops, right? And then you come back and you're like, oh, let me pick this ball back up, and it's super frustrating. So feel free to do like an upsell, a downsell, even just something to keep the momentum going. It doesn't have to be as big as a launch, but like, can you keep putting out content? Can you keep talking to your list, those new people that showed up for you? Kate says downsells are good, or even stacking another launch, or even just making sure your marketing plan is solid. Exactly, right? Like as long as you keep that ball continues to roll down the hill, can you keep it going? It doesn't have to be as intense, but you don't want to totally stop it in its tracks and lose that. So that's why sticking to a strategy and seeing it through is so valuable in a launch too, because then you're less burnt out and less mentally fatigued at the end of it, right? So you can do that downsell or keep that momentum going because, yes, you're going to work hard during a launch potentially, but you're not so burnt out from changing your mind, trying this new thing, being exhausted, thinking it's not going to work, right? You've created the momentum that you can now continue to use, right? Kate says, I always repurpose content after to keep momentum, even though I would take a few days off. For sure. It's just about, again, continuing to stay in it, right? So like even afterwards staying in it, and like Barb and Kate were saying, or Barb and Lindsay were saying, you might still get a sale because of it if you really want to. So stay in your launch, believe it is going to work, take action that agrees with that, and you will be golden. And it's so tough to stay in that belief sometimes and to have that faith, but that is the muscle you got to flex in a launch, and that is the one that will make all the difference in the world. So, let's see, I think I got more that I didn't see. Maggie, hi, what is your favorite mindset hack for launching? Hi, Maggie, I messaged you. I miss you. In other words, what are some of your foundational go-to thoughts to walk through the fear of doing something new? Asking for a friend. I think for me, it's like, so I did like a little pre-work thing before this, and I said like write down the top 5 things that you think are going to make a successful launch. And I think part of it is like pick something that you already believe in, right? So like don't pick that strategy that so-and-so told you should work, but that doesn't really feel good and that you don't totally believe in. Like one of the mindset hacks would be pick something that feels good and a strategy that you like and that you would want to do anyway and that you believe in. So like, for example, I was saying like one of my clients did primarily like a behind the scenes launch, personal invites and relationship building. That's her jam, and that's what she believes in general in her business. So bringing that into a launch helps the belief system stay strong because she's already seen it work somewhere else. She already likes it, and so it's easier to get in that, right? So pick something that feels good for you and that you're going to want to stay in and keep executing on. And then I think the other thing is to like normalize and find evidence. So like I said this earlier, but like it's normal in a launch to not have sales for a couple days. You need someone that's going to tell you that so that you don't think you're a crazy person. It's normal not to get a lot of sales in between, the end of early bird and cart close. It's normal to get a big percentage of your sales on the last day. So I think like creating some like normalizing things in there for yourself really helps your mindset too, so that when you get into that fear, you can kind of remind yourself like there's normalcy to this, because I think when we get the most scared is when we think we're doing something wrong or there's something about it that's not working. And then I would say my other favorite thing is like to figure out, I think I talked about this a little bit earlier, but to figure out how I've won before I've won. So like Safia was saying, like it builds your community, it builds your list. I was saying that it's gotten me one-on-one clients. So thinking about that piece too, like how am I winning before I've even sold this out with this launch? And then when I'm getting into that bad mindset place, like how do I focus on that? Because that always helps pull me through. The mug, I've been using this mug all the time, and I was telling everyone that I think my tea tastes better when I drink out of it. Mira, that makes so much sense. Yep, I burnt out so many times for sure. And then you do all this work and then you lose the momentum and it's just like exhausting, right? Lindsay, detach from the results for sure. I mean, you guys, if you've watched me ever for any length of time, you know that I talk about detachment like all the time, primarily because it's some of the most important personal work I've had to do in life and business, and also because I believe in it really deeply. But if you can like figure out how you've already won, then you're able to be a little bit more detached versus like being so attached and then wanting to like do all the things to get in it. Hey, Raina. Kate Boyd, our very strategic launch strategist, just said detachment is real, y'all. So it's true. And our beautiful energy healer, Lindsay Landry, said it too. So it is true across the board, whether you're going all in on strategy or mindset or energy or whatever, detachment matters in your launch, right? Hey, Raina, how you doing? Are you still in Texas? Oh my gosh, that tea is so good. Okay. Any other questions? Any other thoughts? This was so fun. I have something to tell you guys. And then if you have any other questions, feel free to post them while I'm doing that. And we'll go from there. Okay, so I have something exciting to say, which is I have 2 coaching slots open in November. Technically, one of them is already probably spoken for, but here's why I'm saying it and here's why I'm talking about it. Well, for 2 reasons. Isn't the mug epic? It says I'm fucking magical, and it's a unicorn, obviously. It's from Barb, and it's amazing. Okay, so here is why I'm telling you that I have 2 slots open in November and why I'm so excited about it, because I literally cannot remember the last time that I publicly announced that I had coaching slots open, which, is cool, but I wanted to speak about it openly, and I wanted to tell you that today because even though I am very fortunate to not have to do that and that I haven't talked about my one-on-one coaching slots a lot and that I haven't had to, I really, really, really want to make part of this launch conversation also about the fact that there's nothing wrong with saying that. There's nothing wrong with sharing it and selling it. So again, like, even though I've been fortunate to not have to do that all the time, like, I want to make a point in this to say, if you're selling a lot, you're doing it really, really right. So I want to be saying, hey, I'm also on here and selling something, and I have 2 coaching slots open next month. And I don't feel shitty about saying it, even though I haven't in a really long time. I should be doing it more, honestly, and I should be talking about this more because I want to set the example in this community. And when we're talking about launching and selling, that selling is not shameful, that you are not doing it wrong if you're selling, that you are not doing it wrong if you're talking about it, that in your launch, you should be selling the shit out of whatever you're selling and not feel like selling is icky or shameful or sleazy or whatever. So I felt like this would not be a proper live stream around launching if I did not also sell something, because that's the entire point. Am I right? What tea is it? Like, not just unicorn, but something we can actually buy. Okay, this is a good question because it's delightful tea. It's Harney and Sons, and it's called Paris, and it tastes like blueberries, which is also why I call it unicorn tea, because it kind of feels magical and Paris-like. Harney and Sons, Paris. It's amazing. I also recommend, which Raina introduced me to and is like one of my other favorite things, is Hot Cinnamon Sunset by Harney and Sons. It's phenomenal. Basically tastes like Christmas in a mug. Lindsay says, woo, get in with Lacey. She's amazing. Aw, thank you. I love you. Yes, this. Exactly. Actually, Raina and I have an opt-in all about, Raina, can you drop the link for me? All about how to make more offers. And that's something like I talk about all the time. I say all the time. And I noticed that I just haven't been doing as much. And again, it's okay. Like, I haven't needed to, and I don't want to like be in a position where I'm like making myself wrong. But I really do want to set an example for this community that when we're launching, when we're selling, when we're making offers, we are doing business right, Bye, Julie. Thank you for joining us. So, Raina, if you can, drop the offer or drop the link to make more offers. Basically, Raina and I made a joint PDF for y'all that's all about the 20 ways that we make offers in our business and how you can use that. Oh, good. Here we go. Show. Yay. Oh, that covers my face. It doesn't matter. Okay, so that is the cheat sheet you can get. It has 20 ways to make offers, but it's so valuable to you and important, because what you don't want to do in a launch, besides not staying in it, is not selling enough, right? So feel free to sell. I also want to say, feel free to sell in this community. I know I went on a big rant recently about this community and going back to community and all of that amazing stuff. And yes, but like, you can sell in this community at least a third of the amount of time that you're giving value. So for every 3 pieces, like 1/3, do you know what I'm saying? Like 1 sales post for every 3 pieces of value. Like, use this. Don't be afraid to make offers. Don't be afraid to sell. I'm here making an offer today going, hey, I have 2 coaching spots open for November. If you want one, let me know. If you want to talk about it, let me know. Here's the lesson. I should probably know the link for you to book a discovery call with me and let me know, but I don't at the moment. So I'll figure that out later and put it in here. But that's a good lesson. And I can still make an offer imperfectly, and I can still sell imperfectly. So there you go. Also this. Oh, what is that a link to, Raina? Is it the T? I hope it's the T. Safia, I love that you always walk your talk, Liz. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So be in your launch, see your strategy through, make offers, download our make offer thing. Book a discovery call with me. I'll have to get you the link another time because I'm an unprepared launcher. But seriously, this is it. There's no magic secret. Like, my clients don't tap their head and rub their belly and spin around in their chair 3 times and have a successful launch. Like, what they do is they stick to it, they stay in it, and they work their mindset around it. Okay. So I hope you guys have an amazing weekend. If you're watching the replay on this and you have comments, questions, whatever, feel free to let me know. I'm going to keep checking it. I would love to engage in this conversation. I think this is a conversation not happening in our industry enough. Everybody's telling you that they have the magic 5-step secret, and the 5-step secret is stay in your 5 steps, right? Oh, I love you guys. See, this community and these people, I love that you guys just dropped the link there. That kind of makes me want to cry a little bit, and I'm going to refrain. But I love you. Thank you. Maggie, thank you, Mark. You guys are the best. Team Lacey, I love you. Lindsay, don't give away the secret, right? Wouldn't it be great if I ended this with, except I do have 5 secrets and you can buy them here at this link. No, I'm just kidding. But, oh, I love you guys so much. Thank you. You guys are the best. I'm so grateful for you guys. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's kind of the secret, right? So if you're launching, I know Bridget, you said you're launching this week, your cart just opened. That's it, girl. Stick to it. If you need a plan, talk to Kate. If you want to make more offers, download our thing. And if you want to work with me, book a discovery call because we're starting in November. And I hope you guys have a beautiful weekend. I love you all. Thank you for watching. Bye.